All right, good evening, everybody. Hope you're having a great Tuesday night. This is the latest on what will be many updates for Erin over the coming week to week and a half. It's going to take a long time for this storm to come across the Atlantic. You can see it kind of swirling around out there in the middle of nowhere, moving west at 22 miles per hour, winds at 45. So yeah, it takes more than a few minutes to get across the Atlantic when you're only going 22 miles per hour. But this is the latest track as of the 5 p.m. advisory. Now, we're getting them at 5 and 11 a.m. and p.m. now. Once it gets all in closer toward the U.S., we'll start to get some more frequent updates there. Still, though, at this point, we don't anticipate it being a problem or even any impact here for us. That could change, and of course, that's the reason why we're following this as we go through the coming week here, just in case this thing decides to take a more westward turn and head more toward the southeast or somewhere along the U.S. East Coast. But right now we're expecting to turn eventually toward the north. So you can see here, going from tropical storm to hurricane strength, probably sometime looking like Thursday maybe now. Earlier it was looking like Wednesday night and Thursday. But anyway, the National Hurricane Center says a Cat 1. And then a Category 2 on Friday. Saturday, it's still the same thing, and then jump into a Cat 3 by the time we get into Sunday. I mean, that's a long way out. You're talking about the backside of the weekend, and it's still nowhere even close to the U.S. just yet. So a lot of stuff can change between now and then, but the models have been pretty consistent. Here's a look at the group from the GFS. So you're going to see a lot of different models. The red is kind of your average in the middle there. And that's going to show you where the most likely path, according to the GFS, is. There's Bermuda, little dot right there. So Bermuda definitely needs to keep an eye on this as we go through the beginning of next week, because both this and the European model draw it either right over it or somewhere near it. So notice how the trend is to start, once we get into the weekend and beyond, to start curving toward the north, and then off toward the northeast, back out into the Atlantic again. Now, of course, you do have a couple of outliers here. So keeping an eye on it just in case this thing skirts by the Bahamas and decides to kind of come on in a little bit closer here. So that's the GFS suite. Let's go on to the Euro model group. And you're going to see a lot of similarities here. The only main difference with this one, Bermuda is right underneath here, is this one has a little bit farther westward jog. It does want to kind of put it a little bit closer to the U.S. coast. Could be something to keep an eye out for like the Outer Banks, North Carolina, as you get into about a week from now. I mean, many days away. And again, things can change, but consistency is pretty tight between the models right now and the thinking that it's just going to kind of guide in between these highs that are going to be for the Atlantic and for the southeast, eastern half of the country, and really just kind of thread right through here, up and over. So again, like I talked about last night, becoming a fish storm. So this would be, the reason we call it that is because it's there for the fish, not so much people, except for Bermuda. So again, some outliers. Yeah, could it skirt by the Bahamas and then eventually come up this way? A couple of models think possibly. But the general consensus is, to kind of go toward the north. You do see some groupings right here that do kind of go. That's the reason I was saying like the Outer Banks of the Carolinas, if the Euro is right. Let's put it all together and go forward with the long-range models. And you can see the green with the reddish purple area, that's the GFS, and then the Euro is in the blue circle. And I like to stack them together. Some folks don't like this model comparison because it just looks like a lot of blobs, and I get that. But to me, it kind of compares things a little better, especially when I back it up. You can see how they're kind of together. The blue European model is underneath the GFS, and notice how the blob is pretty close here. As we start to get on out, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you see a little separation there. GFS says more curve it toward Bermuda, and eventually the Euro does too. You saw the spaghetti model plots there, but it just hangs it a little farther west before it starts that turn. If either one of these solutions are right, or any of these spaghetti models I was showing you are right, then this is going to be a non-event for us. It will not affect us. But if something changes and this thing decides to break away a little bit, it would take a big change in the weather pattern, which doesn't look to be in the offing, but something we'll watch for anyway. So if you're just joining us again, it is still Tropical Storm Erin for now as it loads up on here on your screen. You can see again, it's a very slow movement west at 22. Of course, we've seen slower storms than this. Slow when you think about that it's got to come across the entire Atlantic Ocean. So it left Africa and now it's just dawdling out there. So it's going to take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even then Sunday, it's now, just north of Puerto Rico. So not even to the Bahamas yet. So we're looking at a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if it was going to be close to us, heading into Bermuda, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And again, the strength going from tropical storm force, that's what these icons are, to then jumping to a Cat 1 hurricane, probably Thursday into Friday. And then strengthening to a 2 and then to a 3. Now remember, the Saffir-Simpson scale only goes to 5. And once you get to a 3, it's then considered a major hurricane. So this should be a big storm. I don't know if it's going to go to a 4 or anything higher yet. We'll have to wait till this is a lot of days. And the Hurricane Center will fine-tune this as it gets closer on in. But again, this curve here is what's expected. Let's go over again the GFS. You can see all the different models. There's that run toward the northwest that sort of jumps toward the north here and then curves back around toward the northeast. And once again, yes, you do have some outliers that try to throw it over this way, and that's exactly what they are, is outliers. I mean, some models do say, hey, hold on a second, this thing may go this way, but that's not the majority opinion at this point. This is the GFS. To the Euro group again. And what we're seeing is a similar scenario, but as I mentioned earlier, it does want to hang out a little farther west toward us. So the Euro is the one that drives it a little bit closer toward the U.S. coast, but even then, there's only a couple outliers that would bring it by the Bahamas that would be something that we would be really paying attention to. Of course, we're going to pay attention to it, but as far as something that we'd be, starting to get concerned about it, I do think that if it takes this westward jog, even though the U.S. side is going to be on the clean side of the storm, if you had a Cat 3 or higher, that could be a problem for the Outer Banks of North Carolina there. So something to watch. But again, the general consensus in red here is that it stays well off the U.S. coast and goes near Bermuda and then eventually hangs back out here. So once again, this is the GFS in green, yellow, and orange or red, whatever this is, trying to show you kind of some of the intensity. Underneath it in blue is the European model. So you can see two models running at the same time. And you see both, if you've ever seen, me show these kind of graphics before, and you're probably like, what is the blue and green paint spilled all over the wall? It is to show the comparison. How are they tackling the same storm over time? And notice how they do start together. Saturday, Sunday here now, separation. Going into Monday, Tuesday. Not a huge difference, but the Euro, if this is the trend, again, that would put it a little bit closer, but they still both call for that turn. So the GFS kind of turns like this and then goes back out in the North Atlantic. Euro stays with it together until it gets about right here, and then it turns it. So that's the difference in the two at this point. But again, many, many days to go before we actually see how this thing is going to play out. But the models are fairly consistent at this point. But again, got a long way to go. So if anything were even close to being something that would impact us or be close by, it would be a week from now. So we'll be talking next Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there, if it were going to be anything nearby. So that's kind of the latest on that. Tropical Storm Erin for now. Again, poised to become Hurricane Erin probably Thursday late into Friday, and then start running up the scale from a Cat 1 to a 2 to a 3, becoming a major hurricane, and then expecting to take that northward turn toward Bermuda. If everything goes as planned, it would not affect us at all. It would be out in the Atlantic, and we would never have any impact from it at all. So we'll see how it changes, if it does, as we go through the next week. And of course, we'll continue to have updates here and online and on air and all over the place. So thanks for joining me. We'll talk later.